It's almost time for the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, America's sweethearts. Bet you didn't think that I was an enjoyer of the show, did you? Well, you're wrong. I love the show. I actually love the show so much, I used to watch the original version, starting in 2014 when I myself was a CFL cheerleader. Yeah, I just keep surprising y'all with the lore, but back in the day, I was a CFL cheerleader for like 4 months. It wasn't that long. I didn't have enough dancing technique, as in I had no dance training, but I had a lot of energy, a lot of heart, and I could dance and I could perform. But you know, when you're on a team with a bunch of people, you can't stick out. Everything has to be very precise. This isn't about me though. This is about the DCC, because at the time that I was on the Calgary Stampeders Outriders, I started watching the original Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders making the team. The CMT Classic. And as the new series premieres, or season 2 of the series premieres on Netflix, I just wanted to not only revisit that show for those of you that hadn't seen it, because I'm quite surprised at how many people didn't even know they had a show before this, because they even mentioned it in the documentary. And I want to enjoy it. It's a good time. I don't always agree with the values and the ideas and the whatevers that all the girlies are subscribed to, but I love seeing femininity and hard work and strength and power and people having their dreams come true. I just think it's so cute when somebody works really hard for something and then they get it. Listen, it's a beautiful thing, but we got to enjoy this show with caution, because there's stuff from the old show that's definitely not in the Netflix one that lets you know what the organization is really about behind the scenes. So we're going to get into it. Bonjour, nakam hi. My name's Khadija. Feel free to take a look around, suss out the vibe. I just sit in my living room and talk about whatever I want. Today I'm talking about the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, America's sweethearts, making the team, that whole thing. Let's do it. So, like I said, they had an original program on CMT that ran for about 16 or 17 seasons, and it basically followed anyone that was auditioning for the team through the process, from the very first round to the preliminaries to the semifinals to the finals, and then to training camp, where they spent about 8 weeks or so training, learning all of their dances. They have about 50 or so dances that they have to learn, and then of course their infamous Thunderstruck routine. You have to see the routine from the sky to understand how fucking incredible it is. I get chills watching it. If you're sitting there going, I could probably do something like that with my friends, you are so wrong. And that is why they do a good job, because anybody that is great at their craft, especially a physical activity like dance, let's say, makes you think that you could do it too. It has to look effortless. You don't want to see somebody efforting on stage. That is not cute. These girls train hard. Real fucking hard. And they have a certain caliber of excellence that they are trying to achieve that starts at the top with Kelly Finn Glass. Miss Kelly Finn Glass, she is the director of the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. She has been since the 90s. She's the one that has basically catapulted them into more pop culture. They were always in pop culture in the 70s and 80s, because quick history, the Dallas Cowboys, America's team as they call them, they had a co-ed high school cheerleading team at first, or a co-ed collegiate team, I believe. And, you know, it wasn't really that interesting. It was kind of cute, whatever. And then there was allegedly, and they didn't put this in the Netflix series, but there's a documentary called Daughters of the Sexual Revolution that talks about this, where a sex worker named Bubbles is walking down these stairs and everybody's staring at her because they're like, girl, that's Bubbles. And so she is kind of like the inspiration. I guess the head of the team was like, we could have some sexy ladies in there. And so they created this uniform. This iconic uniform that everybody knows about. The original leader, the original director of the program, had similar values to Kelly Finn Glass. We'll talk about those values in a second. But even if they were dressed like this, they were still known as America's sweethearts. Often imitated, never equaled. I'm a fan of them, but not necessarily the organization and the things, right? And it's something to parse out, you know? But anyway, Kelly Finn Glass basically starts the calendar shoot that they do every year. She starts a lot of other initiatives, but she especially starts the TV show, Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders Making the Team. back in the early 2000s. And as I said, the show took you through the entire process of the audition into training camp and then into making the team, although it was only like the last couple of episodes. The Netflix series takes you into a longer look of actually what it is to be on the team the whole year. But the Netflix series, they're not as candid as they were in the original one. Let's first talk about the pay. They don't get paid as that much. Back in the day, they didn't get paid at all, if anything, a $15 honorarium, because it was like, well, we're just happy to be here. We're honored to be here, but you can see how hard they work and what they do. One of the biggest gripes people have is that they don't pay them what people think they deserve to make. And I don't really know what the numbers are, actually. I don't think they've ever been transparent about it, but people that are on the team view it as a privilege to be on the team. They do get paid, but just maybe not what others would think for how hard they work, how much they train, and it's basically like a second job. And a lot of them have jobs on top of that, because I don't think they can live off of just their salaries of being a cheerleader, as far as I know, unless they're doing influencer stuff as well, maybe. But in the original CMT version of the show, they don't really address the pay. They just talk about how much of an honor it is to be a DCC. It's a legacy. Some people have their mothers that have been DCCs, and it's like a whole thing of like, your mother was a cheerleader and now you get to pass it on. So that's a quick one. The main one that we should discuss, though, is trigger warning, EDs, talk about all that stuff, is the weight and the diet thing. Because as you can see, this uniform is tiny. One of the girls in the Netflix series called it baby clothes. Like, it is small. And when you watch the Netflix version, you see them talking about people's weight to an extent, or let's say Victoria, one of the cheerleaders whose mother was a cheerleader as well, talking about how she had bulimia. And she doesn't outright say bulimia. She just talks about a binge purge cycle. And she dealt with a lot of stuff in her season when it came to her weight. They had somebody that was a former cheerleader that was into nutrition or something like that come in and talk to her about her weight and stuff, because in the original series, they would weigh them every week. And I don't know if they still do, but they don't show it on Netflix. But they pointed it out, they kind of nod to it. They do a sizing, and the uniform, as they say in both series, is part of the audition. If you look good in the uniform, if you have the DCC look, that points to you during your audition process that you're more likely to make the team. If you can photo well, if you are photogenic, that points to you as well. You might not point your toes all the time, but if you are photogenic, they care a lot about dance technique too. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. The technique is there, but it is also about power and performance and beauty. Kat points out that you don't get a new uniform. It's fit to your body. Once it's on, if it stops fitting you, they go, why doesn't this fit you anymore? That's exactly how she said it. They used to weigh them. In the early seasons, they would show them weighing them.
Every one of you either need to tighten it up or tone it up. Just, you look heavy.
I think Kitty's concern is valid, and that is, are you guys getting lazy or complacent? Y'all are heavier than you were with last year's picture. Because the next conversation we would have would be like, you're a rookie and you're not making the team.
Every night in training camp, once you've made it past all the sections, you basically are training every single day almost, except for the weekends, I believe. And they call a few people into their office to have conversations like they did in the Netflix series, but in the original one, it was way more scary. And so they would call people in, and a lot of times they would talk to people about their weight. They would talk to them about their thighs. They would talk to them about the uniform and how it has to have a certain look because you can't hide anything. They would have them do training and work with, I believe, an ex-military sergeant, Jay. He was the one, and we'll get to the military connection of the DCC as well. But he, in the early seasons, for most of the seasons, I believe, the one that is talking to them about their health and wellness, getting them all on diets. And again, we can say that people are talking about healthily fueling yourself and also healthily losing the weight, but like they would straight up tell some girls, you need to lose 10 pounds. And if you can't lose 10 pounds during this training process, we can't have you on the team, girl. Like some girls that have been on the team, because you have to re-audition every single year, will be kicked out. Maybe they've been on the team for 2 years. Their third year they audition, they maybe gain some weight, and the girlies are like, no thanks, this is weird. I think Kelly referred to it as nothing fluffy or heavy, nothing too thick.
You did have some judges say they wanted you to tone up your tummy at auditions.
Yes, I'm aware that's one of my weak spots.
And you can't also be too skinny because they want, like, let's say size 4, size 6, size 8 might be pushing it. And they also have, this is the thing that shocked me. Some girl was my height. I think she was 5'9", and they were saying, girls, your height on our team on average weigh like 130 something or something like that. And I was like, huh? Yeah. They compare you as well to your height because everything is also very aesthetic. If you notice in their kick line, the tallest person is in the middle and then it goes out to shortest from there. The old TV show as well does something that the Netflix show never did. In the early auditions and throughout training camp, if Kelly or any of the judges point out that somebody looks a little thick, little fluffy, the cameras will zoom in on that. They will slow motion it. They will zoom in on the rolls. They will do slow motion on the rolls. It was crazy. I was rewatching the early seasons like, wait a minute. They also, though, don't want girls that are too athletic and manly, right? Because the DCC look, as Kelly points out, is feminine. It's a nice figure. It is classy. It is elegant. And speaking of classy and elegant, another weird thing that they used to do on the old show, and I don't know if they still do it now because Netflix doesn't show this, is they used to take them to etiquette classes. Now, honestly, reality TV show, they're trying to add segments, sure. But yeah, they used to take them to etiquette classes so they could learn how to eat properly.
It's not two-handed soup, just one. Make sure you cut it.
Okay, thank you.
I just keep remembering Kashara and her heavy Southern accent being like, "What?" She's so funny. Told you, I'm a fan of the show. Another thing I have to point out that I think you could notice in the Netflix series, but also particularly in the original one, is the DCC has always been mostly diverse. A thing that I was surprised to learn is that back in the 70s, a black woman was the first one to model the uniform. And then on top of that, they always had a mixture, right? You still had to be skinny. Suzanne was also like Kelly, like didn't want girls to be too thick or too fluffy or too anything. So it's not like they hired different body types, but they were like different skin complexions. And a lot of times they were able to wear out and were encouraged to wear out their natural hair. So you can kind of see a dip a bit. I think when Kelly takes over in terms of diversity, it doesn't mean that it completely dips down, and there is still diversity on the team in terms of shades, let's say, of people or ethnicities, but not sizes. But it was interesting to watch the early seasons and notice how so many of the girls that were from quote unquote rougher backgrounds or more inspiring were usually like black. And usually they didn't have the training or the dance experience. And it wasn't that they were always black. Some of the girls would audition not having any dance training or any experience as well, because dance is expensive. And if you don't have money, you can't do dance. And if you don't have the training, you can only get so far. Again, I was on the team, not the Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders, Calgary Stampeders Outriders for like 4 months, made it past training camp and all that, but I didn't have dance training. I was just a good dancer and I loved to perform. And the choreography was really hard for me to memorize. And so I would mess up a lot. And you have to be very precise when you're dancing with 15, 16, 20, 36 other people, because everything has to look very uniform. And if you're a team that prides yourself on the dance ability, and as Kelly says, the most like comprehensive dance audition outside of the Radio City Rockettes, like if you're gonna say that, it's important for you to have that precision. And when you don't have technique, it's hard to know how to actually hold your body. What does a sickled foot look like? How do you point from your heel? How do you actually extend through your body? How do you kick your foot up to your face? Because you can do a split on the ground and not be able to kick your foot up to your face. Like, girl, that kick line, I get exhausted watching the show. Like, I truly do. Hats off to you, ladies. But even though they like different shades, different complexions of the same body types, let's say, there's also, again, this appreciation-ish for natural beauty. Like, there's still a bit of a glamorization, but like, they don't like tattoos. Kelly hates tattoos. Unnecessary piercings, crazy long nails. One girl, they were questioning if she was a stripper or not because of her nails and how curly and big her hair was. Like, it's very Southern girl, very proper Texas girl, quote unquote, all-American girl. It's a certain stereotype. And this is also where the race and class element comes in, because that stereotype doesn't always lend itself to people that don't come from that background. The idea of elegance, you know, the clean girl, it's the when people are online talking about what is chic and elegant, short nails, natural colors, not too funky nail design. You can't do too much. That's, which... Side note, women, we don't need to not do too much in order to exist. Some of you don't like too much. That's fair. I like pretty simple clothing, let's say. But when it comes to accessorizing myself or my human flesh suit, that's what I like to decorate. I love piercings, some body mod, tattoos, you know, all that jazz. I love accessories. Like, that's how I like to layer myself up. But I don't know. Part of me feels like this desire to be quieter, to not be too loud, too much, needs to be unpacked with us thinking that men don't want a girl that's too much. Not saying that that all of us feel that way. I'm just saying, let's humor me on that thought. Just follow that thought for a little bit and see if that's the case for you. Anyway, coming back. They do interviews, and we'll talk about that next in terms of the girl boss propaganda of it all, but they do interviews throughout the audition process. They don't show that in the Netflix one, but in the original one, you sit in front of a panel of judges. Some of them might be the same judges that were watching your audition. And one girl, I think this was in the 2010s, she had a couple cutouts on the side of her dress, and Charlotte and the rest of them were like, girl, why would you wear that in a professional setting? That is not classy. That is not elegant. That is not the DCC look. That is not the DCC way. No, ma'am. And yeah, they always have to say yes, ma'am. Which, growing up in the South, I feel like that's just a thing. It's also kind of like how in Caribbean or West African cultures, you always say auntie as well. So like, even if they're not your auntie, you would say that. Slash, if they were American or whatever, I would just always say ma'am. Like, it's just something you're used to. You're expected to be a polite young person. Guys and girls, you gotta say ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So it's a Southern thing. It's a cultural thing. We are demure over here at the DCC, okay? Back to the interviews and the intelligence. When they do these panel interviews, these girls have to know not just about what's going on in the world or what's going on in Texas, but the history of the Cowboys, the history of football. They have to know what's going on right now in football, because they would do some interviews where they'd ask, oh, are you excited for XYZ coming to the team? And some girl, not knowing what was going on, is like, yeah, I'd love to, blah, blah, blah. And then another girl would have to answer and be like, well, that would be kind of strange since he's getting traded, but hopefully the actual person that you wanted me to say is going to be coming to the team. You know, stuff like that. Like, they would really try to catch these girls. They asked this girl who the president was, and she said, oh, Biden. This is when Obama was president. I think Kelly said something like, you can't fix stupid. There's something so comforting about watching DCC, even if it's problematic. There's something so comforting about it. Anyway. But this kind of, to me, feeds into this girl boss propaganda thing of like, every single time one of the girls is talking or being interviewed, as I said, they have other jobs. So they talk about the other work that they do. And a lot of the time, Kelly, the director, and Judy, the choreographer, are really impressed when the girls are smart. They have to be the whole package is basically the thing. So it's not just about you being able to dance well, have good dance technique, be able to perform, have the DCC look, be able to speak and articulate yourself and know things. You have to also have something going for you. You have to have some sort of job, some sort of path, something that makes people go, oh, what a good Southern girl, you know? The DCC has been doing USO tours since Suzanne was in charge of the team. They basically go to different army bases around the world, a select team within the team, and they do performances. It's basically volunteer work. And you have a list of everything you need to be wearing down to what lip color you need to have on, your shoes. They provide everything for you. You have to all look the same. And then, yeah, you go do the volunteering. You take pictures with people, you smile, you chat with people, and you need to be personable and sincere feeling, at least, to be able to do stuff like that. So they'll go around the world to different military bases, veteran hospitals and clinics. There is a real reverence for the military and for the people that quote unquote protect and serve. I think that's the police that say that. What does the army say? Anyway, and I know my audience, so I know most of y'all are like, the propaganda, not this imperialist. Yes, y'all, this is why I'm saying enjoy with caution, or just enjoy knowing that some of this stuff you're not gonna vibe with. Personally, I'm not 100% vibing with the military element of the show because it is everywhere. Jay, their trainer, is military. He's training them with a military training program. A lot of their family has served in the military, or maybe some of them have. I'm not actually sure. Somebody will have to fact check that for me. And yeah, they do USO tours since the 70s. They also, which I think is really cool, have cheerleaders that can do sign language so that they can sign the national anthem at games. So yes, there's a lot of American propaganda for sure, but what do you expect? It's called the Dallas Cowboys are called quote unquote America's team, even if a bunch of other football fans hate them. I don't know. I don't watch football, but what do you expect, you know? And the military element goes hand in hand with the religious faith element, because this is Texas after all. This is the South. This is part of the Bible Belt. And that means that these girls are looking for, if you're not outwardly Christian, at least a semblance of that. You got to see that throughout the old series all the time, and a whole episode in the new series where you see them starting out in a church, or would it count as a mega church? I'm not sure. You know, they're all talking about their faith and like, I just said, God, take the wheel, lead the way. How could we forget about Reese? Listen, I probably don't, maybe, I don't know her. I probably don't align with her politically fully, who knows? But Reese is adorable. Reese is so wholesome. She just loves God. And like, I know people like that. And to me, again, I'm not religious, but if you like it, I love that for you. So it's super adorable. And people, yes, have used religion to harm people and are still doing it to this day, trying to turn this country into a Christian nationalism. If you are on this team, that is part of the job. A lot of the girls will go to church together. We see a couple of the girls, Katiana and Reese, praying before they eat. Like, it is a huge part of this show, of this team, and of this franchise. Again, this is South, good old American values, and the values are the military, God, and traditional gender roles-ish, though, when it comes to the DCC. We'll say ish because there's a girl bossy element. There's a sisters can do it for themselves kind of, you know? There's still a girl bossy element, but in the fact that they don't get paid as much as the male football players, they don't get as much recognition maybe within the company, let's say, because if they did, to me, the recognition is getting more money, is being not maybe as valued as the football players. Obviously, they're doing completely different things, and maybe the football team brings in, I'm sure, the football team brings in much more money than the DCC. But this show and this team has become more and more popular. They were at the Netflix's fight with Mike Tyson and that one of them Paul brothers. They were at the Mission Impossible premiere. Like, they do a lot of events and a lot of things. So I just really hope that they're getting more fairly compensated because they're doing a lot and they're putting their bodies on the line. One of the girls at the end of it, she was like, oh yeah, she had foot surgery and hip surgery because they have to do an insane jump split after 4 minutes of dancing and a kick line. Girl, it's crazy. It's crazy. The thing that I notice a lot about the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders from both series is that there is a real fine line that they want the women to walk of being sexy and appealing. Because they use the word sexy. They're not afraid of that. They use the word body. They're like, oh, I got a girl crush on her. You know, it's like there's a slightly right of center, I would say, maybe sort of idea. Or maybe center. Maybe center. They did put a couple Black Lives Matter things up, I think. But I will say another thing that side note surprises me, but in a good way, is when I see them with the black girls on the team and they're doing their hair, they have black people doing their hair or people that know about the styling and the stuff like that. So, because they do give them makeovers as well. Forgot to point that out. But anyway, the women have to be a certain level of desirable and feminine for sure. They also have to have a certain level of strength and power to be able to execute the dance moves that they do. And they have to have a certain level of charisma, cuteness, and maybe not all of this at once. Some of them might fit into more archetypes. Some of the girls on the team might be more sexy. Some of the girls on the team might be more cute. Some of the girls on the team might be more intense, but like there's still this line that they're walking of being a desirable object while asserting a sort of individualism, just a uniform, because they often say, do you make the uniform or does the uniform make you? And it's not about you. It's about the team. It's about the uniform. It's about the legacy. It's about tradition. Kelly loves that word. And that speaks to the fact that they are really about this traditional view of women and womanhood, and they've been able to modernize for sure, but there is still a line that they are towing that keeps them out of the category of, well, aren't they just selling sex? And it's a very intentional thing. Suzanne, the original director, was very specific about when they would do appearances, how they would be shot. She didn't want cameras at certain angles because she knew that that would imply something. And then therefore, they wouldn't have as much quote unquote respect. And when you're in a male dominated industry like football, I'm not going to knock you for understanding that and for playing into that for sure. But again, pay these girls more. Okay. Why do I say enjoy with caution? I say enjoy with caution because my guilty pleasure is reality TV. And so if I am going to watch this show and enjoy it, how could I tell y'all not to? You know what I'm saying? I just think that I've come a long way in my thought process, and even when I was doing my little cheerleader bit, and realizing that I like the idea and the aesthetic of something like the DCC, the precision, the dedication. I like the work ethic, and again, seeing people's dreams come true. Plenty of people will audition for years and not make it, and then all of a sudden make it in 1 year and they're on the team, or somebody gets cut the last week of training camp and then they come back and they make the team. And it's really beautiful to see. I'm proud of strangers I don't even know because I'm just like, y'all work so fucking hard. So good for you. But I have to remember that this is a cheer team based on a certain look and a certain aesthetic that is rooted in having a certain idea of how women should be in this world. And that's where I get off the bus because I know that I don't believe in that. I don't even call myself a woman technically. technically, you know. But I can understand from a distance that for them, that's what works and that's what's important, and that there is a certain legacy, tradition, and style that they want from those girls. And I can still say, yes, I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying y'all working hard and making it and seeing this process, and it's fun, and aesthetically it's very pleasing. Y'all are all beautiful. This is great. However, this is an idea. This is an idea of a woman. This is an idea of femininity. This is an idea of beauty, of elegance. And even some of the girls on the team are like, if I was that person, and if I was that person all the time, that'd be great. But like when you're putting it on, that's where you're going. You're not you anymore. Again, the uniform makes you. You are an idea, a fantasy that originally started from a sex worker walking down some stairs in a miniskirt. And it's not to say that to belittle you, to go, it was just a sex worker, so all you're doing is selling sex. No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying oftentimes, and I find this with pole dancing, and maybe I'll talk a bit more about this in the extended cut. When you talk about pole dancing, the only reason I say I don't strip is because I actually don't strip. Like I'm not a stripper. And I'm not saying that to try and separate myself from strippers. I'm saying it because I know how hard it is to strip because I know strippers and how exhausting sometimes it can be and ashy and annoying. And I'm not trying to claim something that I haven't experienced. Also, though, a lot of people that do pole dance will try to separate themselves from the original source of pole dancing. And I know there's Chinese pole and Indian pole and all that, but girl, the pole dancing you're doing is from sex workers. It's from strippers. So let's just be honest about that, right? Let's be honest about the roots and be honest about the fact that there's an element of that in what you're doing. There's always going to be that taintedness in pole dancing, quote unquote, for other people looking in. For the DCC, they've been able to separate themselves from that original reputation because they didn't talk about that in the Netflix series. They talked about that in the documentary, but not the Netflix one. And I'm assuming it's because, again, they might not have full control with Netflix, but there's a certain element of control that they're trying to put a cap on with their image, selecting who gets more camera time and whatnot, who is a good ambassador for the team. I mean, let's not even talk about allegedly Jerry, good old Jerry, is his name Jerry? The owner of the Dallas Cowboys, maybe harassing some of the cheerleaders? I don't know, allegedly. So the other element of this watch with caution is even if there is an element of power and inspiration in what these women do, because there is, I still have to remember that it's within a system that is mostly ruled by men. Like Charlotte, the owner's daughter, girl, you may be in charge technically, but like he's in charge. Daddy's in charge, really. And I'm not trying to say that to like diminish the work that she does or anything like that, but I say that because even she subscribes to the same ideas that her dad does. Of, well, the girls, you know, they're just happy to be here. So we could talk about pay, but I'm not going to pay them more. They're just happy to be here. So shut the fuck up. It's like, girl. Or the way she also will talk about, Charlotte is there when the girls are selected for the team, when they all find out that they've made the team after weeks of training camp. She has a say in this too, you know, because she has a certain idea that she's continuing and passing on, just like the legacy of the cheerleaders from the co-ed team to Bubbles downward. The legacy of who owns the team is passed on from her dad downwards, and the attitudes that they have about women and what they wanted women to do and look like. And if you're going to be a DCC, you just are aware of that, or you're not, and you're just enjoying your time. You know, you're just aware, you're aware of the legacy, the tradition, all this stuff, and the fact that, I don't know, I'm sure if you're doing DCC, you're not thinking about it that much because it's just something maybe you want to do as a dancer. It's a great opportunity. You want to volunteer, do all these things. Sure. Anyway, all that to say, I am a fan of the show. I have said this many times. I have watched this show so many times. I'm doing a lot of this from memory. Like, just what do I remember her saying? What do I remember the girl saying? What moments do I remember going, what in the actual fuck? But I do have to enjoy it with a bit of caution, with a bit of distance, with a bit of, Khadija, just remember, this is an image, this is an idea, this is entertainment. This is, even if they're doing volunteering and they're doing great work, yes, no one's gonna take that away from them. But this is a certain idea of a woman. Because if I watch too many episodes and then start watching Nara Smith videos on TikTok, all of a sudden I'm like, you know, maybe I should lose 50 pounds, which would be crazy. Or I'm like, maybe I do want to be more feminine and girly and like less, you know? And I don't. That's not me. That works for some people, but that's not me. And so I'm just saying, watch with caution, remember, because sometimes your brain, even if you think that you're not getting influenced, sometimes your brain might be, you know? Anyway, thanks for watching. Patrons, stick around for the extended cut. And for the rest of you, I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to feed your plets, water your plets, and remember, you can always change your mind because you can. And I'll see you in the next one.